Welcome to Art with Miss Clary. Today, in honor of National Hispanic Heritage Month, we are going to create a paper picado. Paper picado means punched or cut paper. It is a colorful decoration found at most Mexican celebrations and considered folk art. They are beautifully cut pieces of paper art that sometimes tell stories in their designs. I would like to show you up close a Papel Picado that's been cut out of paper and how intricate all the pieces are. This would be really difficult to cut out. This is one that's showing cactus. I have another here that is showing flowers and maracas here in the corners. I also want to talk about a very famous artist named Carmen Lamas Garza. She incorporates Papel Picado in her paintings, as shown here in the painting Birthday Barbecue. She often paints scenes from her childhood, including family and friends. Carmen also creates Papel Picados inspired by her Mexican American heritage. This is a paper cutout that she used, cutting it from black paper. Join me now to make our paper picado. Here are some examples of the paper picados that I created just using crayons and marker and a half sheet of paper. Cutting these paper picados could be really difficult, and I feel like this really simulates one of the paper picados without doing all that intricate cutting. You just got to come up with what kind of celebration or what you want to tell a story within your paper picado. So I came up with the 4 seasons that I want to tell in mind. So I have spring, summer, fall, and winter. So you can create any type of paper picado you like today, but I want to talk about a couple of our vocabulary words before we get started. One of our major vocabulary words that when we talk about this is called space. Space is one of the elements of art. It is the open or empty area around, above, between, within, or below objects. Space can be positive or negative. It includes the background, foreground, and middle ground. So space is one of our elements of art. So now let's look at type of a space. Let's look at what's called positive space. Positive space is the area in a work of art that are the subjects or areas of interest. So notice here I have drawn a sun. So the positive space will be the sun itself. That's the part that you would color in to represent positive space. So let's look at what's called negative space. Negative space is the area around the subjects or areas of interest. So we notice here that we did not color in the sun. The negative space is the area around the subject or area of interest. So if you take a look at what I created on the Papel Picado to create that look of the Papel Picado, I used what's called negative space. So what I did was I actually used different types of shapes to create pattern, and when I colored it in, I colored around the shapes for the Papel Picado and used what's called negative space. Okay, let's gather all of our supplies so we can get started. For today's lesson, you will need a pencil with eraser, a piece of white paper or notebook paper, and I'm going to use a half of a piece of paper just for time's sake. So if you want to fold your paper in half, that would be great, or if you want it large, it's really up to you. You will need some crayons, and if you have markers, that will be great, but it's not necessary. And also, if you still have any of these lids that you recycled from containers to get a circle, if you want to use the sun, you can grab those as well. But again, those are not necessary if you're not doing a round object. And then if you decide you want to cut out the bottom of your Papel Picado or your top, you will need scissors. But again, that's not necessary either because it looks just as good without trimming it out. So I'll pause here for you to gather all your things. So let's go ahead before we start and look at one more thing that's pretty common in a Papel Picado. So the Papel Picado is very balanced, meaning kind of what happens on one side happens on the other. So it's balanced or symmetrical. So see that whatever I do on one side, if I put my hand over it, I also did on the opposite side. Sort of like a butterfly that we discussed when we talk about symmetry. So again, whatever I put on one side, I also repeat on the other. Your central item may not be totally symmetrical, but I do try to use some of the same decorative shapes on both sides. So let's take a look at this one. And notice I use a lot of circles, triangles, and the scallop type of line. This one here, I use scallop lines, semicircles. So let's go ahead and get started. Now remember, you can create your own Papel Picado for some sort of celebration that could be to represent your family and something that your family does. So I'm going to go ahead and create the sun. If you would like to follow me that represents summer, you can, or you can go ahead and start your own. But we are going to be creating with what's called negative space today when we start coloring. So if you can draw a circle in the middle for the sun, or you can trace one of your caps for the center if you like. Remember, you can create your own design. So that's the center of the sun. I'm going to go ahead and take and draw a scallop or a cloud line at the top. And the sides, but you can create any type of line edge you like for your Papel Picado. And I think at the bottom this time, let's see, I'm going to do something a little different. I think I'm going to do 3 large scallops, but you can do is whatever design you like. It doesn't have to be totally exact on both sides, but just a kind of the same concept. So let's go ahead and draw the sun. So rays. So if I put a triangle on one side, that means I need to put a triangular ray on the other side. If I put one at the top, I also need to put one at the bottom. And if I put one here in between, so go ahead and draw your sun rays using any type of shape. But remember, you may be doing your own Papel Picado design, or you can follow me. So now I do have my sun sort of drawn in here. Now I'm going to go ahead and add another shape to make it more interesting. So I may go in and add some circle cutouts in all of these cloud lines or scallop lines. All circles. I think I'm going to add some semicircles here because it kind of mimics the shape. But remember, you don't want to make your Papel Picado too intricate because you're going to have to outline everything and color around all of those shapes. So you don't want to make them too teeny tiny. So now I have drawn my Papel Picado out with pencil. I like to outline mine before I color mine in. I think today I colored my last one on the sun orange. I think I'm going to actually outline in yellow. Remember, when we're creating negative space in art, that we are going to be coloring in the area around the subject. The subject here is the sun. So I'm going to take my marker, or you can use a crayon for this. Or if you prefer to use a Sharpie, just make sure that you do have a placemat underneath your paper so you don't get it onto a table surface. And I'm going to outline all the shapes. It might take you a little bit of time. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to go ahead and pause just for a minute for Miss Cree to finish outlining while you guys outline. Okay, so I have officially finished outlining, and remember, when you put your marker lid back on, make sure it snaps if you outline with marker. The next thing we're going to do now is start coloring in our Papel Picado. So what you need to do is remember that we're going to color in the negative space. That is opposite of the subject. We're not coloring in the actual sun. The negative space will be the space around the sun. So here is my example in orange. So you can see I colored in everything around all of the shapes. So whatever color you outline in, you definitely want to use that same color to color it in, because Papel Picados are normally one color. So you're not going to see multiple colors in this. So I'm going to take my time and I'm going to start coloring, and I'm going to color the negative space, which means I am coloring around the shapes that create the subject. And this subject I'm using here, I'm creating summer, Papel Picado. I'm taking my time. I'm gonna go around every single one of those shapes. So I am going to pause here and give you time to go ahead and color around all of your shapes. And remember, leave the subject because we are only coloring the negative space. I have now finished coloring all of the negative space around my subject for my Papel Picado. And I see my crayons kind of getting low. So if you need to always, you can peel your crayons if you need to continue to have more crayon as it goes down. So it's okay if your crayon loses the tip because it still can be used. Okay, at the very end here, it's really up to you if you would like to trim out using the scissors your edges if you're a really good cutter. If you're not, then it's okay to leave those edges on because it still looks really, really great as is. So these are usually hung from a string for the celebration. So I could actually hang all of my different seasons from a string for my Papel Picado. So you can go ahead and finish up, and this is a great idea for decoration that represents Mexican folk art.